Internets, hello you absolute lovelies. Let's dive into some Superman comic recommendations to go alongside the now released, officially here, Superman movie. These are the comics I think are the most tonally comparable to Superman, and I think that's one of the most comic book movies ever made. So I wanted to find the comics I thought inspired the film, but also the books that if you liked the film, you might enjoy as well. So I'm going to be doing... Internets, hello you lovelies. Let's dive into some Superman comic recommendations based on James Gunn's film, now in theaters. Now, this film is one of, if not the most comic book film I have ever seen. It feels like you're diving right into a graphic novel. It feels like there are a series of graphic novels and you're picking one and diving right in. So I thought it'd be fun to give you some graphic novel recommendations that are of this tone. I'm going to be doing 4 Superman graphic novels as well as 6 individual comics that are based on the characters in the film. So you can read one of these, you can read all of these. I'm going to try to make them the most approachable of these characters' runs, and I'm going to lean a little more recent so they're more likely to be at your local comic shop. You can also check out I think all of these comics on the DC Universe Infinite app right now. That is DC's online comic catalog, so you can just dive in and read these books in a really fun cinematic way. These are some of my favorite Superman comics, and again, they're very specifically in the tone of Superman. Would love for you lovelies to follow me if you're not already. I read about 50 to 70 comics a week, and I review movies and TV as well as comics from the lens of loving comic books. So please hit that subscription bell. I'm going to do a 50 comic giveaway when we hit 50K. Also, leave a comment below. Let me know some of your favorite Superman comics. Let me know if you're going to check out any of these based on my recommendations, and let me know what you thought of the movie. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. Also, press like while you're pressing buttons. All right, first up, first recommendation, Superman for all seasons. This beauty right here is one of my favorite Superman comics of all time. This is from Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. I feel like the art and writing of this very much inspired the tone of the film. It is very Americana, it is very slice of life, it is big sweeping vistas at times, but it's also the city at times. This Tim Sale art feels a lot like David Harbour's Superman and Clark, but it also feels a lot like how James Gunn sees the world. So this book, very approachable. It takes place over 4 issues. This is only a 4-issue series, and each of them is a different season, which is really fun. I really like Lex Luthther in this book. Lex Luthther is really larger than life, but not in an overly drawn out way. The villainous plot really works. And again, 4 issues, very attainable, and the style and tone, this is the closest comp, I think, to the movie as far as the tone of the film. Next up, after Superman for all seasons, we're going to go to the comic book that James Gunn himself advertised when they announced the DC Cinematic Universe was starting out. That is going to be All-Star Superman. Now this is right up there with For All Seasons as far as tone. This to me is that very big going out into the weird extra tone that I think that James Gunn especially found in the 2nd and 3rd act. I think this film is not a traditional 3-act structure. This is actually the reason I wanted to do this review alongside the film's release, not too early from release, because I wanted to make sure what elements of each comic were at play. I think so much of what David Corenswet brings is this Frank Quitely art. I think so much of what James Gunn brings is Grant Morrison's ability to really narrow ideas that are really broad into more attainable bite-sized versions that are more linear to new audiences. This book is an anthology legacy book. This comes deep into Superman's mythology, and though the movie doesn't directly follow any story one-to-one, the idea of having stuff already in motion on the pure envy and malice from Lex, a lot of the feel of this, and especially the weirdness, a lot of the big sci-fi elements, a lot of the strange Golden Age elements feel like they're from this, so I definitely see why he chose this book to be the one that he was like, I'm gonna make something akin to this. This was the first image we saw from the DCU. This is a fantastic book. It's very dense, it's very weird. I wouldn't necessarily make this your first Superman comic, but if you've read Superman before, if you like the character, definitely dive into All-Star Superman. If you like the film, you'll see a lot of similar DNA. Next up is one of my personal favorite Superman stories of all time. It is, I think, the best relationship between Superman and in a short form. It's, I think, the best relationship between Superman and Lex. It is only 5 or 6 issues. It is Superman Birthright. This right here, this art from Lionel Francis Yu, I feel like is a wonderful element. I feel like this book is actually the book that is maybe the most approachable of any Superman book. I feel like you could just read Mark Waid's writing here and you could just grab this book to know who Superman is in a very big way. And like I said, it's only a few issues. It's a super cinematic book as well. So if you're not like a comic person, if you've never read comics of these first three, this is the one I'd recommend most. This is a very comfortable settling in. It's an origin story as well. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, origin retellings of Superman. Introduces some really fun canon. It also plays around with some of the mythology that was introduced with Man of Steel. When we got the 1978 Superman film, that introduced the S as opposed to being Superman. It became the House of L, the idea that his family crest was the S. Then in 2013 with Man of Steel, that evolved into the S standing for hope. They use that idea in this comic, the S standing for hope, in certain bits of that mythology. Love Ma and Pa Kent here. I love Clark Kent as a journalist here. This is very global. This is dealing with a lot of big ideas, much like the film does. If you're going to read one comic from this and you don't care about tone, like for all seasons, you don't care about the weird adventures like in All-Star Superman, if you're going to read one, this is probably the most approachable and most cinematic, Superman Birthright. We're going to go from Birthright over to a comic that I think is very, very inventive and also an anthology book, so you can actually read most of these issues individually. It is, however, collected into a graphic novel, and it is a book that I think is very much for everyone. It is by one of my favorite writers. Not everyone loves this writer, and I'm sure I'm going to get some comments below because I've got 2 books from this writer. 2 out of my 10 books are one guy, but I'm a huge fan of his work, and I love the artist as well. This is Superman Up in the Sky. It is written by Tom King, one of my favorite writers of so many books. We're going to talk about another of his works later, but I especially love his Superman and Supergirl. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is the Supergirl movie they're making. They announced coming out June, and that is based off his book with art by Bilks Evely. This book right here is Superman on a cosmic space adventure, and there's boxing, and there's rescues, and there's huge scope, small scope, everything in between, but it's all very cosmic and very space. I don't think this is the closest comp to the movie. That's why it's my 4 out of 4. But as far as the tone of Superman himself, I feel like this captures Clark Kent and David Cornsweet's portrayal in a very unique way. I feel like it's a really approachable book. It's a very pick up any issue book. I love this, and Andy Kupert's art is so cinematic, absolutely shines. This is a really, really fun title, and it's a very quick, easy pickup. So if you're new to comic books, this would be a great choice for you as well. Going from Superman into the supporting cast, those are my 4 Superman recommendations. We've got Superman for all seasons, we've got All-Star Superman, we've got Superman Birthright, and Superman Up in the Sky. Now, who is Clark without Lois? Lois Lane is one of my favorite characters in all of DC, and this is an incredible title of her. This is Lois Lane Volume 2 / Lois Lane Enemy of the People. This is an incredible almost detective book, but it's investigative journalism. This shows the power of her as a journalist. This shows the strength and intelligence of her as a character. If you like more grounded Cape stuff, you like stuff that's more boots on the ground, this Lois Lane title is absolutely fantastic. This book was, I believe, the artist was Mike Perkins. I remember it was Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka wrote the book, art by Mike Perkins. It's, again, very approachable, very attainable, and most of all, you don't need to have read any other comic ever to get into this book. If you know the idea of Superman, you can read this title. If you know who Lois Lane is, you can read this title with no other comic homework involved. All of these books so far, no homework. This one included. Very fun maxi series, 12 issues, I believe it was, 10 or 12 issues. Really beautiful work from Greg Rucka, really smart book. So I love the detective nature of the title. Going from our intrepid bullpen of Lois Lane, sticking with the bullpen and another intrepid reporter, we are going to go over to Jimmy Olsen before we get to Lex Luthther. This is one of my favorite comics ever. This is an insane book. This is Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen in Who Killed Jimmy Olsen. This is one of the weirdest books, but it feels like the Golden Age sensibility of Golden and Silver Age comics that were more outlandish and zany, but modernized. This book is absolutely crazy. It does so many things in such a bold, zany out there way, but the way Matt Fraction writes comedy, it makes the things endearing and somehow attainable. The way Steve Lieber draws everything, you feel like you're in a classic comic, but it's more modern day tones and sensibilities. There are turtle transformations. There are ancestors of the Olsens wreaking havoc in Metropolis. There are so many things right here. Highly recommend you check out Jimmy Olsen. Who Killed Jimmy Olsen? You get to find out who killed Jimmy Olsen. Really, really zany, crazy book. Going from our Daily Planet of Lois and Jimmy over to arguably the second lead of the film, and I almost put this one earlier, but I really wanted to spend some time on it. I adore that Nicholas Hoult himself referenced this book. It is one of my favorite Lex Luthther stories. We're going from the Man of Steel into Lex Luthther Man of Steel. This is the ego and boldness of Lex Luthther. This is probably the most direct one-to-one from the movie of any of the comics on this list. You feel the movie's DNA in this comic. I actually reread this right before the movie, and it was so fun to see the back and forth, because if you've seen the film but not read the book, you're going to feel the DNA of the film so very strongly. A lot of the imagery in here, not only did Nicholas Hoult use, but James Gunn clearly enjoyed this book as well. This Brian Azzarello art is very painted and very mythic, but it feels gritty and earthy when it's on the human element, but large and mythic and Greek when it's on the superhero element. All one artist, but different tones in his art. This Lex Luthther shows you the psychology of who Lex is. The writing here from Brian Azzarello, he's so good with 100 Bullets and so many things, but Brian Azzarello really understands Lex Luthther, and here we get to see Nicholas Hoult's kind of fire and fuel and inspiration. You get to see Lex and his opinion on Superman, but on a deeper level. You get to see his genius, his science, all of that prowess right here in Lex Luthther, Man of Steel. Highly recommend this book. If you love the film, you will love this book, and Nicholas Hoult has cited specific pages in this book. This dude knew the book so well, knows the character so well. This book is the one-to-one, I think, and I really, really enjoy it. All right, going from Lex Luthther to another egoist. This is not the book that a lot of people would recommend, but it's a writer I love. It's also a recent book, and also a book Nathan Fillion recommended, and Nathan Fillion liked for his character. So from a Nicholas Hoult comp to a Nathan Fillion comp, a book he actually read, Human Target. This book right here has such a fun take on Guy Gardner. It's fun because he's a bit of an antagonist. Now, he is a good character. He's a hero. He's a protagonist, but to see him from another perspective and to see him in such a douchey way, because he's a douchey character, really, really serves the take that Nathan Fillion did. So this is Human Target. This is based on a man who avoids death for money. He is a hired gun of basically the ability to avoid death, but he gets poisoned and is really dying, and he's trying to solve the mystery of his own death. He gets poisoned to save Lex Luthther. It's crazy. You'll read about it. It's amazing. But Guy Gardner gets in the way in a lot of fun ways. Not only is the writing incredible, but Greg Smallwood's art here is some of the best I have ever seen. This is some of the most beautiful line work I've ever seen in a comic. Some of those beautiful pages I've ever seen. And it is Tom King. I mentioned him earlier with Superman Up in the Sky. One of my favorite writers in the game. This is a maxi series. I think it's 6 to 8 issues. Not a super long run. It's a Black Label book. It's adults only. Highly recommend Human Target. It is some of the best low... It's not low mystic. It is a very approachable, boots on the ground book. It's a very grounded book, but with huge supernatural elements while being grounded. It's a hard line to walk, but Tom King and Greg Smallwood walk it. And this is such the Guy Gardner take that Nathan Fillion brought to us. So those are our supporting cast. We gotta give it up for my favorite member in the film of the Justice Gang. From one Justice Gang member to another, we gotta give it up for the scene stealer of the film for me, a character that I most want to see a sequel revolve around. Now, I could go a few options here because I love this character, but Mr. Terrific in the film, Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific, I'm going to recommend the most recent because I want you to be able to find this comic. I want you to be able to go in a comic shop and pick this up. It also helps that this is his origin. This is Mr. Terrific Year 1. This is going to tell you the backstory of Mr. Terrific. Not only is this man a genius, not only does he want fair play and sharing his tech with the world, not only does his mind rival Batman's, but he uses it in a different way. Not only is he a triathlete and all these things, but he lost his family, and it didn't make him vengeful. It made him want to make the world better, and you get to see the genius of the man. You get to see the loss of his family. You get to go on this journey and see what builds to Mr. Terrific, but playing with time a bit, so you get to see the Mr. Terrific you know, as well as his origins. I also recommend The Terrifics, which is a really solid book that has some Metamorpho in it, but The Terrifics might be a little harder to find, so I'm making this my must-read for Mr. Terrific, and it's an origin, and it came out like 2 months ago. So you can read this, you can find it at your local comic shop, most likely. Mr. Terrific Year 1. There are, I think, some better Mr. Terrific stories, but approachability, origin, all those things, and it is a good story. It's a really solid Mr. Terrific, so I do recommend that. If you want to stick with some Tom King, I recommend it Up in the Sky and Human Target. Tom King's Strange Adventures is probably the most one-to-one Mr. Terrific to Eddie Gathegi's. I love the book. Definitely check out Strange Adventures, but it's a little less approachable, it's a little denser, and it's going to be a 12-issue series about another lead. So I wanted a book that was led by the incredible Eddie Gathegi's Mr. Terrific. All right, my last recommendation, number 10 of 10, you lovelies. We've talked Superman, we have talked Lex Luthther, we have talked Lois Lane, we've talked Jimmy Olsen, we have talked, oh, by the way, that's the Terrifics cover. You got Metamorpho there, you got Eddie, you got Plastic Man. We've talked those titles, but this film exists because James Gunn had a hard time cracking who Superman was to him until Krypto. So I want to give Krypto the 10th spot I want to land this with Krypto, and fortunately there's a brand new Krypto book, very easy to find at your local comic store. This is Krypto, the last dog of Krypton. So much like that Mr. Terrific pull, we're going from origin to origin. This is the beginning of Krypto. This is his origin story. This is Krypton into Earth. This is a very interesting journey. Big cliffhanger in the last issue. You're going to be following Krypto. This is written by Ryan North, the writer of my favorite Fantastic Four run of all time. That, I think, is one of the best things over at Marvel. Now he's writing Krypto at DC. He's doing both. And guys, I always say this, but it's not a Marvel store. It's not a DC store. You go to the comic store. This rivalry is ridiculous, and it's largely fan-based, not publisher-based. So Ryan North writing at the two big houses, crushing it at both. Ryan North's Krypto, absolutely incredible. Highly recommend. Only one issue as of recording. I think the second one will come out very soon, if not today. I'm filming this on a Wednesday. This is such a fun time. If you love Krypto in the movie, you can go to your local comic shop and pick up Krypto, Last Dog of Krypton, #1. In a few months, this will be collected into a trade paperback, but for now, it's individual issues, just like Mr. Terrific's Year 1, an origin of a character, coming out right now in stores. Check it out. So those are your recommendations, you lovelies. We had Krypto, Last Dog of Krypton. We had the Lois Lane, Enemy of the People. We had, before that, All-Star Superman, Superman for All Seasons. There's your All-Star. There's your Superman Birthright. There's your Lex Luthther, Man of Steel. There's your Human Target Trade. There's your Jimmy Olsen. Lots and lots of stuff. The Terrifics. I'm going to list these all in the comments below so it's a little bit more succinct. But 4 Superman titles, a Lois title, a Jimmy title, a Lex title, a Guy Gardner, a Mr. Terrific, and of course a Krypto. Bringing us home, those are the books I think tied most directly into the film. Those are the tonal comps as well as some recommendations of books I enjoy that I think are very approachable for readers and more on the new side so you guys can find them at your local comic shop. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of those titles. Also, let me know what you thought of the film. Let me know if you're going to pick any of these up thanks to this recommendation. Let me know if there's any you'd recommend for me. Are there any Guy Gardner books you especially love? Are there any Superman books you especially love? Mr. Terrific recommendations. Let me have them in the comments below. Please subscribe if you made it 16 minutes into this video. Hopefully you liked what I had to say. 50K, 50 comment giveaway. Comments, like, press all the YouTube buttons. I will see you guys very soon. Absolute pleasure to give you guys some comic recommendations. Hope you enjoyed them and hope you enjoyed the movie.